I want to ask you a question. Yeah, I am talking directly to you listening right now. Have you ever felt completely trapped by your own sense of duty?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Have you ever felt like your job, or maybe just your societal responsibilities, were quite literally consuming you, demanding these sacrifices that, deep down are just destroying your actual life?
It's honestly the defining psychological tension of modern adulthood, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we construct our entire identities around being useful, being reliable, answering the call when it comes.
Right.
But the architecture of that reliability, it often requires us to basically wall off our own humanity.
Which brings us to the absolute nightmare scenario of what happens when that wall just completely collapses. So today we are unpacking Franz Kafka's surreal 1919 short story, A Country Doctor.
Such a deeply unsettling story.
It really is. And to do this, we're pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources. We have the original context, obviously, but we're primarily looking at this through the lens of two very distinct literary analyses.
Yeah, the international perspectives.
Exactly. A detailed Japanese critical translation and a really comprehensive Arabic analysis where the story is known as tabi brifi.
And looking at Kafka through these distinct cultural lenses, it reveals something so crucial. I mean, whether you're analyzing the collapse of individual boundaries through the Arabic concept of communal obligation, or the Japanese tension between giri, which is social duty, and ninjo, human emotion, the core horror of this story remains terrifyingly universal.
Because this isn't just a story about a medical house call gone wrong in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
It is this brilliant hallucinatory exploration of the absurdity of expectations, the devastating sacrifices we make for our jobs, and what happens when you realize you are completely powerless in your own life. So, okay, let's unpack this.
I'm ready.
We start with a protagonist known literally only as the Doctor. He is a rural physician facing a literal and metaphorical dead end.
Right, and the environmental setup here is critical to understanding his psychological state. It is a freezing heavy winter night, like a massive blizzard is raging.
And the infamous night bell rings.
Exactly. An emergency call for a patient supposedly suffering from this severe illness in a village 10 miles or roughly 16 kilometers away.
I mean, 10 miles in a blinding blizzard in 1919 is practically a death sentence.
Oh, absolutely.
And the immediate crisis is that his primary mode of transportation, his horse, is dead. And the sources highlight a really specific detail here. The horse didn't just die of old age.
No, it didn't.
It died the night before from extreme overexertion in this icy, endless winter. Like, it literally worked itself to death.
Which is such a powerful image. The Japanese analysis points out that the dead horse is essentially the first mirror held up to the doctor.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the horse is this biological machine pushed completely beyond its physiological limits by the relentless demands of the rural medical practice.
Wow.
So the system the doctor operates within, it demands so much that it destroys the very vehicles of its own operation.
That makes so much sense.
Right. So the doctor, looking at the frozen corpse of his horse, he's basically looking at his own inevitable future if he just keeps answering the night bell.
And because of this, he's paralyzed. He sends his maid, a young woman named Rosa, out into the village to basically beg for a horse from the neighbors.
Which is a huge ask in a storm like that.
Right. No one is going to lend out a horse for a 10-mile journey in a lethal snowstorm. So Rosa returns alone, swinging a lantern, confirming the absolute hopelessness of the situation.
Yeah.
And the doctor is left standing useless in his snow-covered courtyard, physically freezing, but also experiencing this profound professional paralysis.
Because he is caught in the ultimate double bind. And the Arabic literary source we're referencing, it frames this moment beautifully through the weight of the social contract.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, the village expects him to be the savior. His title as doctor isn't just a job, it's his entire social utility.
Right, it's his identity.
Exactly. If he fails to answer the bell, he kind of ceases to exist in the eyes of his community. But to answer the bell requires resources he simply no longer possesses.
So the pressure of that double bind causes a fracture. In a moment of sheer, unthinking frustration, the doctor lashes out. He kicks the cracked door of a disused pigsty in his courtyard.
Such a weird, specific detail.
It is. And the text notes this pigsty hasn't been opened or used in years. It's filthy, neglected, practically forgotten. But he kicks it, and the door swings open.
And this is where the environment immediately shifts from rural realism into, psychological surrealism.
Yeah.
Because A wave of warmth and this terrible smell wafts out.
Yeah.
A lantern swings inside, illuminating a man huddled in the filth.
And this man crawls out of the pigsty on all fours. He has these striking blue eyes and distinct shark features. And he looks up at the doctor and asks, "Shall I saddle up?"
The physical mechanics of how Kafka introduces this character are wild.
Yeah.
Crawling out on all fours, it immediately strips him of his humanity.
Yeah, he's like a beast.
Exactly. The Japanese translation often refers to him with terms that edge toward the demonic or the yukai, like a supernatural apparition. He is primal, completely animalistic.
And Rosa, who is standing right next to the doctor, actually laughs at this absurdity. She says, "You never know what kind of things you have stored in your own house."
Which is such a dark line.
It's dripping with dark irony, considering what this apparition is about to do to her life. But to put this surreal moment into a modern psychological context, it's like, imagine you are panicking because you're late for a life or death career milestone.
Right.
Your reliable commuter car is dead in the driveway, so you kick the rotting door of an abandoned garden shed in your backyard, and inside you find a roaring, pristine, high-performance sports car.
I love this analogy.
But the catch is, the keys are held by a terrifying, chaotic chauffeur who looks at you like you are prey.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that if that sports car is the raw, repressed energy required to push through burnout, the problem is you don't control the vehicle. The chaotic chauffeur does.
Exactly.
In literary analysis, the house often represents the mind. So the pigsty represents the shadow self. It's the darkest, most neglected parts of the doctor's own subconscious.
So basically, by compartmentalizing his life for years, shutting away his anger, his exhaustion, his desires, just to be the perfect, dutiful doctor, he built this pigsty in his own head.
Precisely. The mechanics of professional burnout require us to sever our emotional needs from our professional output. We lock our humanity in the dark so we can function as tools for society.
Wow.
For years, the doctor kept this door shut. But the moment his conscious, rational tools fail him, the immense pressure of his so-called duty forces him to kick open the door to his subconscious.
And what comes out is horrifyingly powerful, because right behind the crawling groom, two massive horses squeeze their giant bodies through the tiny door of the pigsty.
Bizarre imagery.
Totally. Their bodies are steaming in the cold air, they are majestic, but they are tethered to this primal groom.
Because the doctor's desperation summoned exactly what he needed to fulfill his social contract. But since he sourced it from his repressed shadow, it manifests in a form he completely cannot control.
And the cost of unleashing that repressed energy becomes violently clear the moment the horses are out. The doctor, thinking only of getting on the road, asks Rosa to help the groom harness the team.
Big mistake.
Massive. Rosa steps forward with the harness, and the groom immediately wraps his arms around her and shoves his face into hers. She screams, runs back to the doctor. And the sources note this visceral detail. On Rosa's cheek, there are 2 rows of red teeth marks.
He bit her face.
He bit her face.
It is a shocking escalation from surreal tension to straight-up physical violation. The groom operates purely on base, aggressive instinct. He's completely unbounded by the social norms the doctor has enslaved himself to.
And the doctor's initial reaction is appropriate. He yells at the groom, calls him a monster, threatens him with a whip, but then cognitive dissonance takes over in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, he does the mental math.
Right. The doctor instantly stops himself from defending his maid. He realizes this monster is the only one providing the means to answer the night bell.
And the Arabic analysis focuses heavily on this internal negotiation. The doctor rationalizes that the groom is a stranger and an unknown variable, but the night bell is a known sacred obligation.
He actively decides to weigh her physical safety.
Against his job. Yes. He weighs the safety of a young woman who lives under his protection against the abstract demand of his profession.
And the abstract profession wins.
It always does for him.
The groom isn't intimidated by the whip at all. He tells the doctor to get in the carriage. The doctor complies, but insists on taking the reins, arguing the groom doesn't know the way.
And the groom's response is bone-chilling.
Oh, it's terrifying. He says, "Of course, I'm not going with you anyway. I'm staying with Rosa."
The doctor is forced to look directly at the trade-off he is making.
Rosa screams and runs into the house. She bolts down the hallway, turning off all the lights, locking the doors, trying to plunge the house into darkness so the monster can't find her. She knows exactly what is coming.
It's so bleak.
The doctor tells the groom, "You're coming with me, or I'm abandoning this trip. I am not handing the girl over to you as the price for this ride."
He voices the moral objection, sure, but his physical presence in the carriage completely contradicts it. He has surrendered his locus of control to the momentum of his job.
Okay, wait. I need to push back on the framing of the doctor as a tragic victim here.
Go for it.
Because the Japanese source touches on the conflict between human emotion and social duty, but isn't the doctor just fundamentally a coward?
Oh, interesting.
I mean, he uses the quote-unquote duty of the night bell as a shield to avoid confronting the monster in his own courtyard. He later admits he barely even noticed Rosa living in his house for years.
Right.
It's easier for him to let the momentum of his profession carry him away than to actually fight for his own home. He's rationalizing sacrificing an innocent woman.
I completely agree, and that's exactly the trap. The Japanese concept of giri, the burden of societal obligation, can absolutely be weaponized as an excuse for moral cowardice.
Wow.
The doctor tells himself he has no choice, but he created the conditions for this surrender. By stepping into the carriage, he abdicates his responsibility for his private life, and the groom merely claps his hands and the supernatural horses bolt.
And the text describes her departure as total sensory overload. The carriage is swept away like a piece of wood in a rushing stream. The doctor has absolutely zero agency. And the timing of this departure is the most devastating part of the sequence. In the exact fraction of a second that the carriage violently pulls away, the doctor hears the wood of his own front door splintering under the groom's attack.
The destruction of his private sanctuary and the violation of Rosa are the direct, simultaneous fuel for his professional journey. Kafka ties them together in the same breath to show the inescapable causality.
It's brutal. The moment he hears the door splinter, the journey is over. A 10-mile trek through a deadly blizzard happens in the blink of an eye.
Teleportation, essentially.
Right. The storm stops. The moonlight is shining. He is magically standing in the courtyard of his patient's farm. The universe rushed him to his professional destination the moment he paid the toll of sacrificing his humanity.
And the speed of the journey represents the deceptive ease of abandoning our boundaries.
Oh, that's a great point.
When you are rushing toward a catastrophic mistake, propelled by the blind momentum of workaholism or external expectations, the current carries you effortlessly. You cross the point of no return without feeling the friction at all.
And the friction only returns when you try to go back?
Exactly.
So the environment he arrives in is completely disorienting. The parents and the sister of the patient rush out into the courtyard, practically lifting him out of the carriage. They are babbling in overlapping, confused sentences.
Chaos.
They lead him into the house, and the atmosphere is immediately suffocating.
And the visual details of the patient's house in the sources serve to physically manifest the stifling nature of his job. The kitchen stove is neglected and smoking, filling the room with completely unbreathable air.
It's claustrophobic. The parents are hovering right over him. The doctor approaches the bed and finds a young boy. The boy looks thin, his face is blank. He doesn't have a fever, he's not shivering.
Right.
But as the doctor leans in, the boy pulls himself up, grabs the doctor tightly by the neck, and whispers directly into his ear, "Doctor, let me die."
It is a profound, intimate rejection of the doctor's entire purpose for existing in that room.
Yeah.
The patient does not want to be saved. The patient recognizes the futility of the exercise.
But the family doesn't hear this whisper. They're just standing there, vibrating with the expectation of a miracle. And the doctor is completely thrown off balance. He opens his medical bag, takes out some tweezers, examines them, and puts them back.
He's stalling.
He is completely distracted. The realization of what he left behind has finally hit him.
The compartmentalization is failing.
Yeah.
He is physically standing 10 miles away, but his mind is entirely consumed by the splintering door and the wild beast he unleashed on Rosa.
And then he looks out the window, and in a truly bizarre, surreal image, the two massive horses have shoved their giant heads through the open windows of the house.
It's such a striking visual.
They are just standing there, watching the patient, breathing steam into the room. The doctor is staring at them, thinking, how do I save her? How do I get back? And in this state of overwhelming psychological bleed-over, he performs a catastrophic misdiagnosis.
This is the collapse of his professional competence.
Yeah.
The very duty he sacrificed his home for is now being botched because he literally cannot focus.
He listens to the boy's chest and decides nothing is wrong. He concludes the boy is perfectly healthy, maybe just suffering from bad circulation because his doting mother has been giving him too much coffee.
Notice the mechanics of his burnout here.
What do you mean?
When overwhelmed, the brain seeks the path of least resistance. A mundane, dismissive diagnosis like, oh, too much coffee, allows the doctor to justify leaving immediately.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he gets angry at the family. He thinks, I should just kick this kid out of bed. He starts spiraling into deep resentment, thinking about how he is just a poorly paid district doctor, the village takes advantage of him, the night bell is just a series of false alarms.
He's projecting all his anger.
He literally thinks to himself, I'm not a world reformer, let him lie there.
This is the absolute bottom of the burnout spiral. He has lost all empathy for the people he is tasked with healing.
Yeah.
He views them as adversaries.
Yeah.
And the Arabic analysis draws a really sharp line here. The community demands the doctor be a savior, but the doctor views the community as a parasite, draining his life force.
But the family blocks his exit, the father offers him a precious glass of rum, the mother is weeping, and then the sister steps forward and waves a bloody towel.
And just like that, the illusion of the healthy patient and the doctor's excuse to flee completely shatters.
Instantly, the doctor realizes he missed something massive. He goes back to the bed, pulls the blankets back further, and examines the boy's right hip. And the sources provide this clinical yet highly symbolic description of what he finds. There is a massive open wound, the size of the palm of a hand.
And the language used to describe the wound is so vital here. Kafka calls it rose-colored.
The exact same name as the maid he just sacrificed to the monster.
Rosa.
Exactly. The wound is the physical manifestation of the doctor's guilt. He travels 10 miles to escape the horror in his own home, only to find the name of his victim blooming on the flesh of his patient.
That is so dark.
The Japanese translation notes the contrast in the wound's description, too. It has dark depths but bright edges. It is described as being open to the light like a mine.
A mine, which implies something violently excavated. And what is inside this mine is where the imagery gets truly grotesque. Warning to the squeamish listeners.
Yeah, fair warning. Because when the doctor looks closely into the depths of the wound, he sees thick, white, and pinkish worms. They are the size of a little finger, splattered with blood, writhing with their many little legs, pushing their way out of the rotting flesh toward the light.
It is absolute, incurable corruption disguised as a blooming flower. The doctor even refers to it in his own mind as a blossom on the boy's side.
The mechanics of the worms are fascinating because they represent an active, consuming decay. This isn't just a static injury, it is a living rot that is eating the boy alive from the inside out.
Right.
And the doctor looks at this writhing mass of parasites and knows immediately his medical bag is useless. He thinks, poor boy, there is no helping you. I have discovered your great wound. You are dying from this blossom on your side.
And how does the family react when he uncovers this fatal, horrifying decay?
Well, this is where the story shifts from a medical crisis into a full-blown societal critique. Because the family is thrilled.
Or happy.
They see him staring at the wound and they don't understand the gravity of it. They're just happy to see the doctor doing his quote-unquote job. The sister runs to tell the mother tells the father, and the father tells the guests who are suddenly tiptoeing into the house through the moonlight. The entire village crowds into this claustrophobic room to watch the doctor work.
This raises an important question, and the Arabic analysis provides critical context here regarding the shifting of societal faith.
How so?
The community no longer cares about the mechanical reality of the illness. They care about the ritual of the expert intervening.
And the doctor reflects on this cultural shift directly. He notes that the villagers have lost their old religious faith. The local priest sits at home, tearing his religious vestments to shreds in despair.
Right.
Because religion has failed them, the village has transferred all their demands for salvation and miracles onto the doctor.
Which happens. When a society loses its spiritual or philosophical grounding, it often places a crushing, almost divine burden on its professionals. Scientists, doctors, engineers.
Yeah, we see that today.
Exactly. The village views the doctor not as a human being with limitations, but as a magical tool who must fix the unfixable through sheer force of expertise.
And they literally strip him of his humanity to force him into this role. The elders of the village and the boy's family surround the doctor and they forcefully take off all of his clothes.
They remove his uniform, the very symbol of his authority and his separation from them.
While they are stripping him naked, a school choir led by a teacher gathers outside the house. They stand in the freezing moonlight and sing this incredibly simple, chilling song that echoes into the room. They sing, "Strip him and he will heal, and if he doesn't heal, kill him. He's only a doctor."
He's only a doctor. That lyric is the thesis of the transactional relationship between society and the individual.
It's so brutal.
If he cannot perform the miraculous function they demand, his life has absolutely no value. He is a tool to be discarded if broken.
It perfectly captures the extreme imposter syndrome of a toxic environment.
Okay.
Think about it. You are brought in as the savior to fix a project or a crisis. Everyone is watching you expectantly. But deep down, you've seen the wound. You know it's full of worms. You know the foundation is rotten and doomed. Yet, instead of accepting the reality, the stakeholders strip you of your authority, your dignity, and literally throw you into the bed with the dying problem.
Which is exactly what they do. They drag the naked doctor by his head and his feet and lay him against the wall, intimately pressed right next to the boy's open, festering wound. They force him to share the suffering he is utterly incapable of curing.
And then the villagers leave the room, the door is locked from the outside, the singing stops. The only remaining witnesses are the two supernatural horses, still sticking their giant heads through the windows, watching like silent, unblinking judges.
So eerie.
Right. And in this quiet, deeply uncomfortable space, the doctor and the dying boy have a conversation.
Because stripped of his clothes and his professional armor, the doctor is finally forced to interact with the patient as an equal.
Yeah. The boy turns his head to the naked doctor and says, "You know, I have very little confidence in you."
The boy sees entirely through the charade of the expert.
He really does. He tells the doctor, "You didn't come here on your own 2 feet. You were dropped here." And the Japanese analysis emphasizes this line. The boy recognizes that the doctor has no actual agency.
Not at all.
He is just a leaf blown in by the storm of societal obligation. The boy says, "Instead of helping, you're cramping me on my deathbed. I'd love to scratch your eyes out."
Because the boy is angry that the doctor's presence is a lie. The doctor is pretending to offer salvation while actually just occupying space and bringing his own baggage, his guilt over Rosa, his burnout into the boy's final moments.
And the doctor's defense is pathetic. He admits his situation is a disgrace, but he whines, "I'm a doctor. What am I supposed to do? Believe me, it's not easy for me either." I know. He is demanding sympathy from a child who is literally being eaten alive by worms.
It is the ultimate failure of empathy. The doctor is so consumed by his own victimhood that he literally cannot comfort the dying.
And then he resorts to lying. The boy talks about how terrified he is of his wound, this quote-unquote beautiful wound that he says he was born with. The doctor, desperate to quiet the boy so he can figure out a way to escape, offers this terribly condescending philosophical lie.
What does he say?
He says, "Your wound isn't that bad, done in a tight corner with 2 strokes of the axe."
The imagery of the strokes of the axe that shifts the blame from internal rot to external trauma.
Exactly. The doctor tells him that people get wounds like this all the time in the forest without ever hearing the axe or seeing who swung it. He's telling the boy that suffering is just random external violence.
Which completely contradicts what the doctor actually observed.
Right.
He saw worms, pustules, internal decay.
Yeah.
But explaining the slow, inevitable rot of the body or the soul is too difficult.
Yeah.
It's much easier to tell the patient they were just unlucky victims of a random axe swing. It absolves everyone of responsibility.
And the boy wants to believe it. He asks if the doctor is telling the truth, and the doctor says, "Yes, take the word of honor of an official doctor." He uses his fraudulent title to sell a comforting lie.
Wow.
And the boy accepts it and falls quiet, sinking back into the bed to die.
And the very moment the boy is pacified, the doctor completely abandons his post.
Yep. The escape is just as chaotic as the arrival, but the mechanics of the universe have drastically changed. The doctor grabs his clothes, his fur coat, and his medical bag in an absolute panic. He doesn't even take the time to dress.
He's terrified.
Because he knows if the villagers come back and find the boy dead, they will make good on the choir's threat and kill him. So he climbs out the window completely naked and jumps onto the back of one of the unearthly horses.
He is operating under the assumption that the shadow energy that brought him there will carry him back just as swiftly.
Exactly. He tosses his bag into the carriage, but in his frantic rush, his heavy fur coat gets caught. One of the sleeves hooks onto a hook on the back of the carriage. It dangles in the snow, just out of his reach. He screams at the horses to go. He expects to be swept away like wood in a stream again, but the magic is gone.
The contrast between the two journeys is the absolute crux of Kafka's existential horror.
The horses don't fly, they barely walk. The sources describe them dragging themselves forward like old men through a snowy desert. The instant teleportation is completely gone.
The Arabic analysis frames this through the asymmetry of time and regret, which is so profound.
Expand on that.
Well, when you are rushing toward a terrible mistake, fueled by the false adrenaline of duty or denial, time basically collapses. You cross the point of no return in a flash. But living with the consequences, the journey back to the wreckage you left behind, takes an agonizing eternity.
That is wow. And the imagery is so profoundly desolate. The doctor is sitting on the back of this horse, utterly naked in a freezing blizzard. His fur coat, which represents his wealth, his protection, his status as a respectable professional, is trailing uselessly in the snow just a few feet behind the carriage, completely out of reach.
He's lost everything.
He has. He can still hear the faint, mocking song of the children echoing behind him in the wind. Rejoice, patience, the doctor is laid in bed beside you.
He is physically freezing to death in the storm, but the slow pace allows him to realize that he is already spiritually dead.
Yeah. The slow crawl through the snow forces him to take inventory of what he has done. He realizes he will never make it home alive. His successful practice is ruined. He thinks about how an old successor will steal his place, but it won't matter because the successor won't be able to replace him anyway.
And Rosa.
And worst of all, he thinks of his home. He knows the disgusting Groom is rampaging through his sanctuary, and Rosa, innocent Rosa, whose only crime was trying to help him, has been irrevocably sacrificed to the beast.
The Japanese translation emphasizes the total bankruptcy of his jiri here. He traded everything of actual human value, his home, his safety, his protectorate over Rosa, to fulfill a social obligation that turned out to be an unfixable farce.
Right.
He destroyed his real life to save his professional avatar, and in doing so, he lost both.
The texts provide us with his final, devastating thought as he slowly freezes to death in endless snow. Once one responds to a false alarm on the night bell, it can never be made good again.
It's chilling. A single compromise of your boundaries, a single surrender of your soul to an unreasonable external demand, and the damage cascades until literally everything is lost.
He allowed herself to be used as a tool by a society that didn't care about him, and when the tool proved useless, he was simply discarded to freeze in the wasteland.
It is the ultimate cautionary tale about externalizing your locus of control. I mean, if you rely on the night veil to tell you who you are, you will eventually be called to your own destruction.
So, bringing this profound nightmare back to reality. Think about your own life and the systems you operate within. How often do you hear the metaphorical night bell ringing?
Too often.
An unreasonable, soul-crushing demand from work, from society, from toxic family dynamics. And how often do you answer it at the expense of your own Rosa, your boundaries, your peace of mind, your private sanctuary?
Yeah.
How often do you let the demonic Groom of burnout take the wheel? Because following the momentum of what you're supposed to do is easier than standing up for what you actually need.
We tell ourselves we are just doing our duty, just getting through the week,
Right.
but we are actively building the pigsty in our own minds. And when those suppressed forces inevitably break out, they demand a payment we absolutely cannot afford.
I want to leave you with a lingering, provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up this deep dive. Consider the entirely surreal, dreamlike logic of this whole story.
Right, the magic horses, the instant travel.
The bloody teeth marks. Was there ever really a sick patient 10 miles away? Or is it possible that the dying boy and his incurable worm-infested wound, that pink blossom of rot, is actually a perfect reflection of the doctor's own internal state?
Oh, that's heavy.
Is the boy a physical manifestation of the doctor's own existential burnout? A mirror showing a man who has already lost his soul to his profession, rotting from the inside out, while everyone around him cheers for him to just keep working.
If the patient is the doctor, then the worms are his own suppressed resentments, just eating away at whatever humanity he had left.
Exactly. Sometimes when you stare deeply into the wound, you realize the wound is staring right back. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay warm out there and protect your home from the night bell.